black woman is handcuffed inside a precinct for doing her job. What happens next will leave an entire police department shaking. Would you have stayed quiet or spoken up? Let us know in the comments section below. Cassie Hudgens wasn't just good at her job. She was invisible. The kind of invisible that made people talk like she wasn't even there, like her brown eyes and calloused hands were just part of the building. She knew when to move, when to disappear, when to keep her mop slow and steady so the higher-ups wouldn't step in her puddles. Most of them didn't know her name. She preferred it that way. But it wasn't always like this. 10 years ago, Cassie sat in a community college classroom debating criminal procedure with professors twice her age. She wanted to become a defense attorney. She wanted to fight for the wrongfully accused. She was good. Real good. But then her mama's kidneys gave out. The bills piled up, and Alonzo, her little brother, got caught up in something that took years to untangle. Dreams don't die overnight. They fade. Now she scrubbed marble floors under government plaques she once dreamed of hanging her law degree beside. It was just past 7:15 a.m. when Cassie pushed her cart past the east hallway of the Harlan County Courthouse. The building had this heavy kind of silence in the mornings, before the lawyers, before the foot traffic, before the shouting and the gavels. She liked that time. It was the one part of the day that felt hers. Her earbuds were in, but no music played, just a habit now. People were less likely to talk to her when they thought she wasn't listening. That's when she saw it. Two men standing near the employee stairwell. One of them looked jittery, shifting his weight like he was trying to keep a secret in his shoes. The other was calm, too calm, like he'd already made peace with something that hadn't happened yet. She couldn't hear them, but something was off. It wasn't just how early it was how they looked around. Both of them, like this hallway wasn't meant to see them. Cassie slowed her mop. Eyes down, body small. But she never forgot a face. She logged the details in her head without meaning to. Brown leather folder, right side jacket bulge, maybe a holster. One man pressed a badge too quickly back into his coat. The other didn't even flinch when she passed. And that's when it started. She rounded the corner and nearly collided with Officer Jake Reddick. He was all edge. Square-jawed, tight buzz cut, the kind of man whose uniform wore him. People said he got things done. What they didn't say was how. Reddick's eyes landed on her with the same kind of interest one might give a roach on the floor. "Well, look who's eavesdropping bright and early," he said, one hand already inching toward his belt. Cassie straightened. I didn't ask for a statement." He leaned in. His breath smelled like black coffee and spite. "You janitors get off knowing more than you should." Cassie locked her jaw. "I clean, that's it." Raddick stared at her like she was a math problem he didn't care to solve. Then his partner came around the corner. Briggs, young, shaky, eyes darting like he was in over his head. "Problem, Jake?" he asked. "Nope," Raddick replied, never breaking eye contact. "Just making sure Miss Hudgens knows her place." Cassie didn't answer. She didn't give him the satisfaction, but something in her chest pulled tight. He knew her name. He never used it before. Back in the janitor's closet, Cassie wiped her palms on her pants. They were damp. She hadn't touched a drop of water. By 8:10, she had moved onto the west wing, scrubbing near the judge's chambers, when she heard the commotion. Radios crackling, boots thumping, a voice shouting, "Black, female, stop where you are." Cassie turned, and 3 officers were already on her. Her cart clanged against the wall as she was shoved against it, cold cuffs snapping around her wrists before she could breathe. "What the hell?" she barked. "Loitering and obstruction. Possible tampering with a federal building," Raddick said, too calm, too rehearsed. "My work here. Look at my badge, my cot." "Sure you do." he said with a smirk, waving off her words like flies. You think I don't know your type. Fake ID. Got the hard-working act down real good. Cassie's breath came in short, angry bursts. Briggs wouldn't meet her eyes. Another officer, Ramirez, hesitated. He looked at her mop, then back to Radek. He checked. This don't feel right. You want to write up too? Radek barked. Ramirez backed off. Minutes later, she was in the back of a squad car, still cuffed, still trying to catch up to the nightmare. Through the tinted glass, she saw employees coming in, some glancing her way, most not. The courthouse doors stayed open, but no one opened their mouth for her, until one voice came, sharp and cutting through the silence. Get her out of that car. Right now. 3 black SUVs screeched into the parking lot, doors flung open, jackets with FBI printed bold and loud on the back. The courthouse guards froze. So did Reddick. But Cassie didn't move. Her eyes locked onto the woman who had just stormed out of the lead vehicle. Black suit, braided hair, eyes like thunderclouds and fury. Feeling of respect for order. He found the words muttered together. Cassie's mind flashed back. Kiama Monroe. From undergrad. From those nights spent dreaming about courtrooms, justice, and change. And now? Now she was back. And she wasn't smiling. Cassie's wrists burned. They hadn't even taken the cuffs off when they shoved her into the cramped side office. No nameplate on the door. Just a dusty desk, a busted chair, and a camera bolted into the corner ceiling. They left her alone, just long enough for the weight of it all to land. She sat there, jaw tight, pulse still rushing in her ears. Her mop bucket and badge were still sitting outside the station, probably knocked over, forgotten like a coffee cup left on a bus bench. She didn't cry, wouldn't. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. Crying gets you nothing but pity or power over you. The door opened. Reddick came in first. That same casual walk, like this was just another part of his routine. Behind him, Briggs hovered in the doorway. Not really in, not really out. Raddick pulled out the chair across from her, spun it around and straddled it backward. His arms folded over the backrest like this was poker night, not an illegal detainment. You got a mouth on you this morning, Miss Hudgens. Cassie met his gaze. She didn't blink. You arrested me for mopping. You were where you didn't belong, near a secure stairwell, no ID visible, no uniform tag. My ID was clipped to my pocket. Well, he said, lips curling. I guess it fell off in all the excitement. Briggs cleared his throat. We found it. It was under the cart, still readable. Raddick turned slowly, like Briggs had just interrupted a sermon. Thanks, Tommy. That's real helpful. Briggs shifted back a step, shoulders tense. He wanted to vanish. Cassie could see it all over him. Raddick turned back to her. Here's the thing. You saw something, didn't you? Cassie didn't answer. You walked past those 2 men. What were they doing? She stared at him. Nothing illegal. It's a legal opinion, counselor. His smirk deepened. Cassie's mouth twitched. Not a smile, a warning. You don't want this, she said. Whatever you're playing at, you're about to lose it all. Big words. Coming from a janitor? Big mistake, coming from a cop. Raddick's chair scraped back as he stood. He didn't say anything, just stared at her a little longer than he needed to, then walked out. Briggs followed, hesitating long enough to meet her eyes for half a second. There was a flicker of regret in his face. Then the door slammed shut again. Outside, the station buzzed with activity, radios popping, phones ringing, but Cassie heard none of it. Her mind had already shifted, her memory replaying the angle of the men's shoulders, the look exchanged between them, the second guy sliding something into the wall vent by the stairwell. It wasn't a janitor's job to ask questions. But she wasn't just a janitor. Not in here. The door swung open again 20 minutes later. This time, it wasn't a cop. Agent Kiara Monroe stood in the doorway, dark blazer spotless, her ID clipped like a promise to her belt. Cassie stared, stunned for a beat. "You really got yourself in it this time," Kiara said, walking in. Cassie's voice cracked for the first time since the arrest. "They cuffed me, Key. Outside the courthouse, in front of everyone." Monroe leaned on the desk and reached over to unlock the cuffs herself. The click echoed in the room like a dropped gavel. "You okay?" Cassie rubbed her wrists. "Better now. I put you in here like some perp. I nearly kicked the chief's desk over." "Where did he go?" Cassie asked, her voice low. Monroe gave her a long look. "Because your name's on a list," she said. "And not the kind you want." Cassie blinked. "What kind of list?" Monroe pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket and laid it on the table. Cassie scanned the document. Names, dates, courthouse staff, all black or Latino. Most were low-level. Maintenance, clerks, techs. They'd been surveilling workers, cops like Reddick, feeding info to someone higher, trying to root out risks from inside federal buildings. Said it was preventative protocol, but it smells more like a purge. Cassie's fist balled. "So what now?" Monroe crossed her arms. "Now? I take you out of here. I log an official complaint. I trigger a DOJ notice. And I make damn sure Jake Reddick regrets ever touching your wrist." Cassie stood slowly. "You gonna charge him?" Monroe hesitated. "It's complicated." Cassie laughed, bitter and sharp. "Of course it is." Monroe stepped closer. "But that doesn't mean nothing's going to happen. The FBI doesn't knock politely. We raid, we break down doors, we build pressure, and we don't stop until the truth bubbles up." Cassie exhaled hard. "You remember second year?" Monroe said suddenly, her voice softening. "That debate about systemic bias in law enforcement? You mean the one where you made that professor sweat through his blazer?" Monroe smiled. "You argued better than most of the lawyers I've worked with." "I wanted to be one," Cassie muttered. "You still can. I clean bathrooms now." "You survived this morning," Monroe said, steady and sure. "You didn't beg. You didn't cry. You remembered faces, details. That's what we need." Cassie didn't answer right away. Her fingers tapped the edge of the desk, slow and deliberate. Outside the windowless room, the police station hummed on. But something had shifted. "You want to make this right?" she asked. Monroe nodded. Cassie looked her dead in the eye. "Then don't stop with Jake Reddick. Dig until the whole thing caves in." And just like that, Cassie Hudgens wasn't invisible anymore. She was a witness, a threat, a name on a list. But now she was the one doing the watching. 2 days later, the courthouse lobby smelled different. Not bleach, not the usual waxy citrus from the floor polish. It smelled like tension, like polyester uniforms sweating too hard under stiff collars. Like someone had turned the heat up just a little to see who cracked first. Cassie pushed her cart slow, eyes down, but not because she was hiding anymore. She was watching. She moved past the security checkpoint. Officer Ramirez gave her a nod, short and silent, his mouth tight, like he wanted to say something, but didn't trust the walls. She nodded back. No smiles. Not today. Inside her hoodie pocket was a small audio recorder Monroe gave her. It was illegal for a civilian to use without disclosure, but Monroe had winked and said, "It's only illegal until someone listens." Cassie had seen too much now to go back to cleaning tiles and pretending the world wasn't rotting from the inside. That list, Monroe's list, it didn't just sit quietly in her mind. It haunted her. 32 names, black, brown, working class. Most of them had already been transferred. Administrative shifts, they said. But Cassie found 2 janitors on the list who hadn't been seen in a week. She guessed around. No one knew where they went. No goodbye, no boxes, just vanished. She passed by the stairwell again, the same one from the day of her arrest. This time, she paused, bent down, pretended to scrub the edge of the wall. The vent cover was looser than before. She reached into her back pouch and pulled out a screwdriver. Quick glance over her shoulder. No cameras, just the blind spot between the hallway and the west wing. She unscrewed 2 bolts. Inside, behind the metal grate, was a flat manila envelope, thick, rubber-banded twice. She slid it into her cart's side panel and kept moving. 15 feet away, behind a column, someone was watching. Radek. He wasn't in uniform. Civvies today. Dark flannel, sleeves rolled, his face unreadable, but his eyes tracked her, like a wolf waiting for the brush to move. Cassie didn't flinch. She made it to the staff elevator, hit the button, and stared straight ahead. If he followed, so be it. She wasn't going to run. The doors slid open. She stepped inside, alone. By the time she got to the basement utility room, her hands were shaking. She closed the door, locked it, and unzipped the envelope. Inside were photos, dozens, all printed, time-stamped, some in color, some in grainy black and white. Images of courthouse interiors, security schematics, officer logs, notes scribbled in tight handwriting about entry points, weaknesses in the alarm system, and off-the-clock rendezvous between uniformed officers and unscheduled visitors. She flipped through quickly. Her breath caught. There was a picture of her, from the day she was arrested. Caught mid-mop, looking down. And on the back of the photo, written in thick marker, "Suspect. May have seen. Drop." A chill crept down her spine. They had labeled her a threat before she even knew what was happening. Not because she had evidence, not because she'd spoken, just because she was there. Because she saw. Cassie dropped into the folding chair in the corner of the room and stared at the wall. For a second, she let it all catch up. The way Reddick smiled when he cuffed her. The look in Briggs's eyes. The silence of the station after Monroe showed up, like rats scurrying when the lights flipped on. Her burner phone vibrated in her pocket. She fumbled it out and answered, "Yeah." Monroe's voice came through, sharp and quick. "You got it." "I got something." "Good. I need you to hold on to it. Don't send photos. Don't email anything. We've got internal leaks. And listen, Raddick's not just a rogue cop. He's part of something bigger. Something that's moving weapons. Courthouse is just one of the hubs." Cassie's pulse jumped. "Like what? A militia?" "We're still piecing it together. But if that envelope has any names or numbers..." "It does. Then sit tight. I'm sending someone to pick it up tonight." Cassie clicked the phone off and stared at the ceiling. There was a dead fly in the fluorescent light cover. She wondered how long it had been stuck there. Frozen, unmoving, trapped above the world but never able to escape it. She stood and grabbed the envelope again, tucked it deep in her backpack under a folded hoodie and 2 spray bottles. Then she opened the door and rolled her cart back out into the hallway like nothing had changed. But everything had. By the end of her shift, 3 people had given her strange looks. One clerk who always ignored her suddenly smiled. A courthouse guard she'd never spoken to asked how her day was going. They weren't being friendly. They were checking, measuring, watching. Outside, the sky had turned a dull gray. Storm coming. She made it to the bus stop, the envelope still safe, when a car pulled up. Black sedan, windows tinted. Cassie froze. The back window rolled down and Monroe leaned out, sunglasses on. "Get in." Cassie didn't ask. She got in. Inside the car were 2 other agents, one of them holding a tablet, scrolling through something too fast to read. Monroe didn't waste time. "Who else saw you with it?" Cassie thought. Radek, maybe. He was in the hallway. He didn't stop me, but he saw me near the vent. We'll deal with that. You brought it? Cassie pulled the envelope out and handed it over. Monroe opened it and scanned quickly, her face tightening as she read. League. This confirms our leak. This is what we needed. Cassie looked at her. So now what? Monroe nodded to the agent with the tablet. Now we burn it down. And Cassie, still in her janitor's hoodie, still smelling like ammonia and cheap coffee, leaned back in the seat. She didn't feel small anymore. She felt dangerous. The sky cracked open the next morning. Thunder rolled across Harlan County like a drumline announcing war. But inside the courthouse, everything looked the same. Clean halls, polished floors, the hum of coffee makers, officers greeting each other with clipped nods and stale jokes. No one suspected that by 9:00 a.m., the place would never be the same again. Cassie stood in the maintenance room, her hands trembling slightly as she tied the strings of her work apron, the same faded blue one she'd worn every day for 4 years. But today it felt heavier, like armor. She took a deep breath and looked at herself in the cracked mirror. You got this, she whispered. You already survived them once. A soft knock on the side door. 2 quiet taps. Then 1. Cassie opened it. Agent Monroe stood outside, dressed in plain clothes, but her presence carried the weight of a tidal wave. Behind her, 3 unmarked vehicles sat idling, and a black van had already backed into the loading dock. Are you ready? Monroe asked. Cassie nodded. You brought the hammer? Monroe gave a tight smile. We brought the whole damn toolbox. Within minutes, federal agents in plain suits moved into the courthouse like ghosts. No sirens, no loud entrances, just quiet instructions and a series of quick, precise arrests. Officer Ramirez was the first to be pulled aside, gently, respectfully. Monroe had cleared him after Cassie vouched for his hesitation during her arrest. He nodded as they led him to a secure room, eyes burning with something between relief and shame. Next was Briggs. Cassie caught sight of him from the stairwell, his face pale, as 2 agents approached him near the vending machines. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. He just handed over his badge and gun like they weighed 1,000 pounds. Then came Radek. He was in the east corridor, swaggering as usual, barking orders at a junior clerk, when Monroe herself walked up behind him. Jake Reddick, she said, calm and cold. FBI. You're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and abuse of power under federal code. Radek turned, confusion flickering across his face. Then arrogance. You think you're going to walk in here with your little badge and... Monroe cut him off. We've got surveillance footage, witness testimony, and the files you tried to bury. We've got your handwriting, your drop locations, the whole operation you fed through the courthouse. It's over. 2 agents flanked him. His hands twitched, like he might fight it. But one look at Monroe told him that was a mistake. You can try to run, she added, voice low. But we've already got your house locked down and your phone logs traced. Where you gonna go, Jake? He clenched his jaw, nostrils flaring. You think this makes you a hero, he hissed. Monroe didn't blink. No, but it makes me right. Cassie watched from the stairwell, heart pounding as Reddick was cuffed in the same hallway he'd humiliated her in. His boots scuffed the floor as they walked him out. Loud and graceless. And suddenly Cassie felt it. Not revenge, not even victory. Justice. The precinct was buzzing by 10:30. Rumors flew like paper in a storm. Employees whispered in corners. Reporters were already assembling outside. Cameras pointed toward the entrance as the first wave of officers was loaded into black vans. Monroe pulled Cassie aside. It's going to get loud, she warned. They'll try to spin this, paint it like a cleanup effort instead of what it really is. I figured, Cassie said. They never admit the rot came from inside. Monroe looked at her for a long moment. We want to offer you something. Cassie blinked. What? A job. Cassie laughed, short and surprised. Doing what? Mopping up federal cases instead of hallways? Monroe smiled. Community liaison. You'd work with us directly. Training sessions, accountability audits, recruiting new watchdog volunteers. You've got instincts I can't teach, Cass. And guts most people wouldn't even try to grow. Cassie stared at her, stunned. She thought about her mama, about Alonzo, about those late nights reading law books under a shared blanket. She thought about every moment she was told to stay quiet, keep her head down, let it go. But she hadn't, and now they were offering her the one thing she'd buried a long time ago. I'll weigh back in. I'll do it, she said quietly. But only if I still get to mop the floor on Tuesdays. Monroe laughed. Deal. Later that day, Cassie walked through the front lobby of the courthouse. No mop in hand, no badge on her hip. But heads turned when she passed. Not because of her uniform, because of who she was now. The janitor who stood up, the woman who said no when it would have been easier to disappear. As she stepped outside, reporters swarmed Monroe at the top of the steps. Questions flew, flashes popped. Cassie slipped around the side, unnoticed. Exactly how she liked it. Down the block, a familiar voice called her name. She turned. Alonzo stood at the bus stop, clean-shaven for the first time in months, holding a worn leather folder. He held it up. Job interview at the rec center. Youth counselor. She raised an eyebrow. That right? Don't look so shocked. She smiled, walking toward him. You nervous? Terrified. Good. That means it matters. They walked together down the street, side by side. Not as victims, not as footnotes, but as people who had chosen to do something brave with their pain. The storm passed that evening. Sunlight broke through the clouds in wide, golden beams, catching on the courthouse windows and the edges of Cassie's tired smile. She didn't have everything figured out, but she had a purpose again, and this time no one was going to scrub her out.